Hello everybody, welcome back to Screen Stars and welcome to my review for episode 8 of Star Trek Picard. If you've been following my reviews, I've reviewed every episode so far in this series, and if you want to watch my thoughts on the other 7 episodes so far, they are on the channel. Now, this season of Picard, this first season of Picard, promised so much. I think it had a reasonably strong start, then it fell off a cliff, I think, the quality for a few episodes, and it started to pick up now, the last 2 or 3 episodes, in regards to its quality. And this episode is called Broken Pieces. Now, after the last episode, where they got off the cube finally, and then the last episode we saw Picard on meeting up with Riker and Troy and their daughter and things like that, which I thought was a very, very nice episode for the most part. And this episode now, essentially the majority of this episode is on this spaceship with his ragtag crew, and this episode is pretty much, the whole of this episode felt like exposition to me. It was like tidying everybody's stories up so that it can move on and end the series, I'm guessing, end this first season. So everybody had pretty much storylines that were kind of sorted out a little bit. You know, Alison Pill's character, who we saw, I quite enjoy her character arc, but it seems like there's nowhere else really for her character to go, I'm guessing, after this episode, after killing Bruce Maddox and then putting herself in a coma so that they couldn't be tracked anymore. Well, she comes around in this episode and has a confrontation with Picard, and Soji as well, which I thought was quite interesting. Soji had a few interactions with the crew, and there was a bit of a backstory with the captain and his time in Starfleet and his interaction with synthetic life forms in the past that left him basically leaving Starfleet because of it. So there are all these storylines kind of, you know, moving about in this episode and doing the thing. Picard kind of has a confrontation with Starfleet and kind of says, "I told you so," and they begrudgingly agree to help, I suppose. Even though she swore at him quite badly. That's just something I can't get my head around in this Picard. The swearing, it doesn't fit Star Trek. It just doesn't fit. They needed to do something different, like they did in Battlestar Galactica when everyone was fracking and things like that. Think of something a little bit more creative. It feels cheap to put the swearing and stuff in Picard. It feels like, ooh, we're going to be gritty and grown up. You harm, I think, the mythology of Star Trek. And I personally think Gene Roddenberry, if he saw some of the things they were doing with this new Star Trek, not just this but some of the newest stuff, he'd probably be really, really angry and cross, I'm guessing, with some of the things they're doing with messing about with his mythology of Star Trek and his morals and things like that. You know, I'm not saying Gene Roddenberry was perfect, of course he wasn't, but I think his idea and his initial pitch for Star Trek was all about hope for the future, and that I'm not getting that with this series. I'm not getting hope, I'm getting bleakness, you know, and I'm getting a little bit of loss of hope here in this season, in this episode, in this show, Picard. Yeah, and it feels like the character Picard is being left by the side. Certainly was in this episode. He didn't have an awful lot to do, Patrick Stewart, in this episode, which was odd to say it's about Picard, this show. I don't think he had an awful lot to do in this episode. And of course we still had to go back to the Borg cube because 7 of 9 turned up, and that Romulan ninja that's been helping Picard is still there. And I actually thought at one point it was going to get quite exciting. I thought all these Borg were going to get woken up and we're going to be like, ooh, we're going to get the Borg back and this Borg cube's going to come alive and help, but guess what, that's not really what we got. So they even managed to give us another bit of disappointment on the Borg cube. All the Borg cube stuff, generally speaking, has been a bit naff. But I think this episode was okay in a sense of it was nice character interactions. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10 because I did enjoy all the interactions. I enjoyed how they tried to tell some of the story in this episode, even if it wasn't a particularly exciting episode. I'm hoping in the last 2 episodes it's going to be a bit barnstorming. She's heading home now. I think there's going to be some massive confrontations, and we're hopefully going to get an end to this mystery of who is Soji and is she this destroyer and blah blah. It actually reminded me of the story in Mass Effect at one point. It felt to me like they were stealing some of the Mass Effect type story. But yeah, let's see what the last 2 episodes give us, and of course I will be here to review them as usual, so I shall see you next week for the next Picard review. Thank you very much for watching.